Hey everyone, welcome to my sewing room today. Today I want to talk to you about scarves. I am a huge fan of scarves. I love the way that they can pull an outfit together that otherwise would be very plain. For example, today I'm just wearing a t-shirt and a little cardigan and I look fine, except that all of a sudden I put on a scarf and I look a lot more pulled together. So I make scarves all the time and I thought I would give you a tutorial and show you how I do it. Now I do this with stuff I find at the thrift store. So I just use the polyester crepe de chine dresses that are very out of fashion these days. They usually are short sleeved or they're a tank style and they're very shapeless, straight up and down, blech, kind of non-flattering dresses, which is probably why they're in the thrift store. People have gotten rid of them. So I've made several. Let me show you the ones I've made. This used to be a dress that my husband bought for me on an anniversary overnight, and I loved the dress, but it didn't fit anymore. So it was cut on a bias, which means on the diagonal. So that lent itself very well to it making into a scarf, and so I just did, and so really nice little scarf here. This one was an experiment. I took one of those thrift store dresses and I started folding and sewing, and I would fold and sew at about an inch interval, and what I found was that as I sewed it ruffled up. So that made kind of like a wavy lines, which I really liked because it looks like water. This one I didn't have enough fabric, so I just put a little hook on one end and a little fabric loop on the other, and so it works like a collar. You can put it on, it's very dramatic, and of course I'm looking fabulous, aren't I, with all these scarves on. The one I want to show you how to make today is this one, and this is probably one of my favorites. It's just a little gray and white, a little ruffled scarf. This is perfect for any time that I wear my gray sweater. I put it on, I can just throw it right on, and there I'm done, and I've got a little bit of interest around my neck. Might keep me a little bit warmer. So I'm going to show you how to make this. It's really simple. Now in this case I used one of those long tank dresses. And what you do is you just lay it out and then cut the top off from armhole to armhole. So I've already done that on this one, and I'll throw those away. So I'm left with this big long kind of rectangle-ish looking thing. So I'm going to turn it inside out so that the seams are exposed. Now I am a great fan of using hems whenever possible. So I'm going to use the hems on this dress as finished edges so that I don't have to do the sewing. So now to cut the pieces for the scarf, first thing we're going to do is cut off the side seams. Now depending on how your dress, what size your dress was, and how careful you were with cutting apart the side seams, you may have some really crazy looking edges here, but that's okay. All you need to do is line up one edge, one of the side seams, and then fold your dress in half lengthwise up to about, just match raw edges to raw edges about where you can. Now if you'll notice, I've got part here and I've got seams. It's not really matching up, but that's okay. So fold it in half once and then fold it in half again. Just make sure at one point or another, somewhere, you've got all these edges lined up. Now this ends up being, depending on the size of your dress, about a 4-inch strip. So now, just cut it so it's all even. Now take it and unfold it and cut along this folded edge. Now you should have 4 strips. They're about 8 inches wide. The finished length of your scarf should be about 72 inches, and that's usually a good length to be able to go around your neck a couple of times. So now what we're going to do is sew these together. Now the trick here is that you want right sides to right sides. So I'm just going to go hem turned up to hem turned up and sew this together at the other end. I'm going to do this with each piece. Now take your 2 pieces you've just sewn together and sew them together at one end, right sides together, so that you have all 4 pieces attached for one long piece. And now I have one huge, big, endlessly long strip of fabric. It's going to ruffle up into about half that size. So now all I need to do is, because I used these finished edges, now I don't have to finish edges because they're already done. Now I'm just going to fold this in half lengthwise and stitch the entire length. And then I'm going to turn it inside out. But when I go to my iron to press it, let me show you a little tip. Time to press. Now you'll notice that when I sewed this, this is offset a little bit. See how that seam doesn't line up at the bottom? But that's okay. If that's what you end up, because the stuff is kind of slippery and hard to work with, if that's what you end up, it's okay because you're going to ruffle the whole thing up in the end anyway. Now when you go to press it, normally you would look at this and think that's a side seam, so I want to press it like this way, but you don't. Here's the trick. You take that seam and you roll it until it's in the middle of one of the sides. So you have the front or the back or one side or the other. But you put that seam down the center and then you press it, and then it's a guideline for stitching later. Now it's time to gather the scarf up. So all you do is, remember how you folded it and pressed it so this seam goes right down the middle? That's your stitching line. So all you're going to do is set your machine to the longest stitch length that you have and run a line of stitching. You're going to start at the top, go the whole length of the scarf. And now I'm going to take my tape measure and I'm going to lay it out so I can see 36 inches. Now all I'm going to do is fold my scarf in half, find the center, and then I'm going to, there's the center right there, and then here is the rest of it. And now what I'm going to do is gather each side up until it's 36 inches long. To do this, take one of your threads, whether it's the needle thread or the bobbin thread, doesn't really make any difference, but notice which side you've got because you probably want to do the same thing on the other side of when you go to gather the other end. Just take one of the threads and start pulling. "36 inches. Once you've got it at about 36 inches, whichever thread you had that you used to gather is the long one. Take the other one, the short one, and give it just a little bit of a tug. And that will secure the end so it's not going to come out anymore, and you're not going to be able to pull on the long one and ruffle it very easily again. This will enable you to get your gathering even and fiddle with it until you like it, and it won't come out the other end. Now you can see what's happening. As I ruffle, it kind of wants to twist and turn. That's what you want. Once you get both sides ruffled, you're almost done. Now all you need to do is go to the sewing machine and set your stitch length back to a regular stitch length and stitch right over top of these gathering stitches. And you're done. If you want to pull out those gathering stitches, you can do that. But you really don't need to because the fabric has already ruffled up and it's going to twist and turn and do its own thing anyway. You're not even going to notice that line of stitching. So for the price of a thrift store dress, under $5 in most cases, you have a really cute little scarf that you can either keep or you can make several as gifts and give them away just in time for Christmas. So I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you did, please leave me a video response because I would love to see if you make one of these, how beautifully yours turned out. I'll see you next time.